And welcome to another exciting adventure on Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael. And joining us tonight is a guest making, I believe this actually is her fourth appearance this year, which is a record for me. And I'm so blessed and so grateful that she's come on. And last episode, we had some heavy glitching, so we have our fingers and toes crossed tonight. Will go smoothly. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my guest to take and run with it and share everything that she's ready to share with us. So I give you the one, the only amazing Olivia James.
Hi, thank you for having me again.
Oh, thank you for coming back on.
So, did you want me to what topics did you want me to go into? Do you have an idea or
Well, last time we were talking Project Oblivion, and I think they didn't quite like that we were talking about that, and so maybe try and make it a little more clear on this recording.
um I'll try to give a recap of everything I've learned about it, if that makes sense. And I just want to say I'm still learning, so everything I discuss is all my personal perspective, my personal opinions, and based on my own personal experiences with using my psychic abilities to do remote viewing and astral travel and things like that to obtain this information. So I just want to make sure that's my disclaimer. It's my personal experience. Everybody has their own experiences. So the way I found Project Oblivion is through remote viewing and spirit hosting. And I think I discussed this prior in different shows where one of my abilities is spirit hosting, which is almost like a I mean, I don't want to scare anybody, but I call it a voluntary possession. It's almost like I meld with another person. You kind of like mesh with them in different parts of the body, the mind, the spirit. There's so many different parts to connect to. I try to connect to a piece of that person. And sometimes I allow myself to open up enough to where they can use my body to speak. And, that's that's how I get a lot of information is from doing that, or also doing remote influencing, which is kind of like pushing my will just a bit, a light pressure on somebody to have them give me the information. And I don't do that often. I only do that if I'm, intending to kind of like break into a base and get information. I had that happen. I broke into a base in Australia, and it didn't go well. It didn't go well. I'll tell that story. I broke into the base. When I was first going under trance, I went into a very deep trance, and I literally, this trance was so deep. This was one of the deepest I've gone. I almost felt like myself was flying, and that's crazy to feel like that. But I'm going to tell you that it's possible to do anything in your most highest state, in your with your highest self. You can do anything. The mind and the spirit and the body is very powerful, more than we know, very complex too. So I felt like I was almost flying towards it. I could feel it. It's like you can almost feel the wind on your shoulders, everything. And when I was coming up towards this base, I noticed that the base looked like one gigantic eye. It was like a huge eye, and I already knew that, okay, it looks like they can see me and they know that I'm coming. So I'm starting to see that a lot more now when I'm doing remote viewing sessions. I'm seeing eyes. So other people have caught on to the fact that I can do this, and now they're watching me, doing this, and then I'm watching them watching me. It's really strange to have that, double eye thing. So when I got to the base, I had, I don't know the space. I'm not from this area or anything. So I start, kind of just wandering around the lower level, and I couldn't get into this. I knew where the room was because it's obvious the locked room is where the information is. So I saw a locked room, and up above the room they had like red digit numbers, and I can't see the numbers, but I think it was like 34 something. And I couldn't get in there. And so I ended up letting myself drop through the ground and coming up underneath it and pulling myself back up under the room. And once I got into the room, it was like a huge office area, and there was all different types of people, and it was almost like a tri-level. It looked like it was a tri-level area, and people were sitting at their desks. Everybody was typing. There was a lot of little side chatter and things like that, just like a busy office. And I decided I need to find somebody. I need to look in here. And I used my kind of like psychic ability and looked around. I needed to find the person that would be the best target or mark for, a remote influencing. So I'm looking for somebody that's not focused, that's kind of off in the corner, maybe not really doing the work. And I found somebody. It was a girl. And I could, in that highest state, I was like, oh, I can, almost, it's like mild telepathy. I'm hearing her thoughts. I'm seeing her thoughts and the pictures in her mind. And she was very much focused on this gentleman who had taken her out, but then didn't call her after that, that kind of thing. Her mind wasn't focused on work. And I said, that's her. That's the one I can use. So I kind of just came up behind her. And this is how I do it. I just put my spirit fingers kind of like on her shoulders, and like there's an energy that you push. So I'm just kind of like pushing a little bit on this person in order to see if I could get her to move. And she did move. And she started, it's almost like my arms were inside her arms, and we started typing together. And I started, putting thoughts in her mind, of what I needed to see. And I wanted project names. And I know there was a couple of projects that I was able to get her to look up. And one was Project Grand Dame. I think that's what it's called, Grand Dame or Grand Dame. And one that was called Light Switch. And there was another one called Stranger. And I wasn't inside her arms for more than, I think, maybe 60 seconds. And it didn't go well. She had gotten up in the middle and went to the bathroom. I followed her because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a professional. And then we came back. And then, I'm trying to do this, and something happened. Somebody found us, because on her computer screen, when we were trying to type, I could see there was a message, and the whole screen shut down. And there was these words that came in green letters that said break screen. And she like almost like flew back in her chair. Like she jumped back. And as soon as she did that, I was like kind of like flown out of her. Like it's almost like she kicked me out because of this, movement. She wasn't focused in, and, she was freaked out kind of, because that meant like, they know I'm here. They know what I'm doing. It's like, stop. They told her to stop with that break screen. But it's because they had other remote viewers watching me. They knew that I was there. They saw me coming already. The eye had seen me. A lot of these bases, they have their own trained remote viewers, and these are professionals. I'm just a girl. These are professional remote viewers they're teams of them. So I call them sometimes the opposing team or something like that. They're groups of remote viewers, not just one. They keep them in groups. Usually they keep them in groups of 4. From what I have seen, it's like a group of 4. And I don't know what that means. I haven't discovered that yet, of why they put it in a group of 4. Is it something, some kind of trajectory that they can follow if they have 4? I'm not quite sure. I do want to find out though. So that was one of the times that I tried to get more information on these projects, and it seems like remote viewers are kind of blocking it. And it's happened to a base here in America. I try to do it, and they wouldn't even let me pass the front gate. As soon as I started coming up, they said no. They're like, somebody came into my head and was like, we know what you're trying to do. You're not going to come in here. It was very matter of fact, like, we know what you're trying to do. You're not going to make it past here. Do you have a code word? No. Okay, bye, kind of thing. I was totally turned away. I tried to do it once on Mars. So I went up to, and I wanted this information. We need this secret space program information. So I broke into a place on Mars, and there was the locked room, just like this one base in Australia. There was a locked room, and I wanted to get in the room, and there were 4 people right in front of me saying that, no, they're like, we know what you're trying to do. You can't come in here. And what I thought was really strange is that they had these, energetically, they made bats, like baseball bats. Energetically, they made these in their hands, and they started beating me with it. And it doesn't matter if it was astral. You feel it. It's real. It's a real thing, because
Oh
the
yeah.
astral was kind of like the battlefield right there. They kind of like beat me down. There was like 4 of them. They weren't as strong as I thought, but it still hurts. Like when I feel that pain from them, and they're just pretty much like, get out of here. This is, it's too protected. They have kind of like an army of remote viewers there and psychics. So it was worth the shot though. I got pretty close. I just wasn't able to get into the actual room. And in that room, I did see like some type of red light. There's some type of machine in there, and they wouldn't let me see what it was. It was something that is like top secret, so I couldn't even get past them. But these are like the counter remote viewer teams that I find quite a bit, and they're actually, it's like almost like every time I do a session now, they're showing, somebody's showing up. The last couple times, and they're not very friendly. The last time I did it, there was a remote viewing group that showed up. It was just one gentleman, and I was under trance, and then he was under trance too because he was trying to see what I was doing. And then I saw him. This is really strange. I saw him, and he was sitting in a chair with his head tilted back, and he had sunglasses on. And that totally reminded me of trance because I put something over my eyes when I do trance, like to make it dark. So I'm like, oh, he's in a trance and he's doing the same thing I'm doing. And it comes to find out he is from a Russian remote viewing team. They're called the Blessed Guard. And I thought it was interesting. I'm like, why would, Russians be interested in what some girl is doing here looking at bases? What are they interested about? And that wasn't the only time. There was a time before that. I had gotten really far. I'd gotten really far and was discovering all this information about Project Oblivion. And I was getting closer and closer. And I was under a very deep trance. I worked very closely with Misha Johnston. And in that trance, I could see something coming through the front of my head. And it was getting closer and closer and closer. And it was like almost coming through a hole in the front of my head. And when I finally figured out what it was a hand. It was one of these teams. It was a psychic assassin almost. He was trying to put his hand in my head. And I'm not a professional, so I don't know the impact of what would have happened if he would have been able, if I wouldn't have pulled out, out of the trance, would he have been able to put his hand all the way through my head, And that particular remote viewer or assassin was from a group called Ronin, and they're a mercenary group too. So it's like all these battling factions are trying to figure out how we've discovered this. So this is one of the things that I've heard them say is, how did you find this out? Where did you get this information from? That's kind of what they're saying to me. And, pretty much it's like, I'm getting it because I'm just traveling around looking for it. I try to tell them, I'm not special. I'm just a girl. There's nothing happening here kind of thing. And it's like, they're like, that was what they said. They're like, how did you figure out how to do this? How are you able to get this information? When I figured out about Project Oblivion, they didn't want it to be found. That's why they sent somebody to almost put his hand through my head, because it's that important. Who knows what could have happened to me? What if one day it turns out that, Olivia had a brain aneurysm and she passed away? Then, it's not normal. Something might have happened. So that's kind of like the risk that's coming along with this information is, people knowing about it now, and the other groups, and I don't know their agenda. We don't know their agenda. The only agenda I know from them is power and control and conquest. That's what I know they're after. So they're kind of pressuring all these different ways. They don't want me to keep trying to find this information. And I did notice the last time I tried to go under trance, it was a little bit more difficult than I usually have. Usually it's such an easy, like, boom, I'm there. And it's becoming a little bit slower because they don't want this information out. So I was going to talk a little bit about how I found Project Oblivion and what are they saying? So a lot of the times when I do sessions, it's all shadow work. There's no love and light really. It's in it. To me, the shadow work is what produces the light. It's because I'm trying to go into these dark places and get this information that we can turn it into something good. We can let people know that all this is happening. So I was able to connect with handlers and the handler division. And I can't explain how I do it. I just do. I just am able to find them. They can find me the same. Just like how when I attach to kind of like, or connect to like interdimensional beings or other, astral entities, something like that. I just don't know how I do it. I just do. It's a psychic ability. I can't explain it. And so I was able to talk to these handlers, and these handlers are very kind of upset. the personal handlers that people have, they are very combative. They talk trash a lot. But when you get to the upper levels of the handlers, those ones are very smug and, ego driven, and they really aren't afraid of what we're doing or what we have. And when I spoke to them, they were very just like business like, saying, we can't let you keep doing this, you this this needs to be stopped. And they were very diplomatic in a way when they were telling us about it. They were just saying, the disclosure movement is gaining too much, validity. You guys are becoming too rational, because they said that for a long time it was left to, the realm of aliens and Area 51 and things like that. And they said now it's different, and they can't have that. People are becoming too believable, and we're believable because it's real. And they said they don't want people to, that's the basic thing. They don't want people to know it's real. They don't want people to know what they did to us as children, what they're still doing to people. They don't want any of that known. So this is where they were talking about how they had to implement a new program. And as far as I was told by directly from handlers, it's a new program. It's not something that's already been in place. It's definitely new from what I've been told. It could be an offshoot of something, but from what I was told, it's a new program to specifically stop the disclosure movement that we have here. And when I'm saying disclosure movement, from what I can see, what I could see in my mind, it's, these things, going on shows, talking about the experiences of the secret space program, talking about MK Ultra, mind control, even people that are experiencers with extraterrestrials, all of it is secret space program. All of it is together in a disclosure movement. And they said, they got to be stopped now. They said they need to push us back into the realm of invisibility, where nobody cares about what we're saying, that nobody is interested anymore. It kind of like fades away. That's what their intention is with this. And they know that we're not going to go down pretty easy. And they've kind of expressed that. They, when I speak to them, they're very combative. Like I said, they swear, they laugh, they humiliate me, they try to ridicule me and the work I'm doing, anything to try to stop us or to, make us lose motivation for what we're doing. Misha's had to argue with quite a few of them, about what's going on. She argues with them, and they come after us. They really are. So they 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 try to keep some of their secrets, and they just can't. Some of us are able to just pass that. So I've seen some of the machines they're using. I've seen some of their tactics, and a lot of their tactics coming in with Oblivion is psychological. And because they told me the theme of Project Oblivion is betrayal, they said that's what's going to pull us all down. So destructive to the psyche, to the human psyche, that it will destroy us. They said the handler literally said to me, all we have to do is send one person to your community and you all fall like dominoes. Pretty much saying all they have to do is have one troublemaker, and then the movement, folds. They said it's not that hard, that we're weak humans, that we won't be able to, stay on top of things, that we're not going to be able to move forward. There's no way we can unify with all of our, behaviors and personalities. They just said that it's not possible. But if it wasn't possible, why would they need to create a project to stop it? So that was my answer. If we're so, we're such losers, then why even put the effort into this? Why even try? It's because they're trying to make it seem like, we have nothing to stand on. And it's just not the truth anymore. We've been given a mission. I think I talked about this before when I met the general.
Right.
I just want to recap it a little bit because it ties into Project Oblivion. So I, it was, this was a really crazy experience. And I never really have experiences like this where I'm, kind of like looking into like a future timeline or something. I really don't have a much interest in that future timeline. Sometimes I like to look in the past, but not so much the future. And so this was a time where it wasn't even me that did it. Somebody pulled me. And I remember going with two girls, and they were younger girls, very pretty younger girls. And they guided me towards, there was this door, and they had picked me up. I don't know how I got picked up or how I got taken to this base, but it was a military base. And these two girls were guiding me. and I didn't put up a fuss, nothing. I don't know if I went into altar or what, but once we got there, they wanted me to meet somebody, and this person was um, a general. And he told me the base, I can't know the base name yet or his name yet. He said it's not ready to be known. But he did say that he wanted to let me know that there's a very serious mission, that about 12 to 15 years in the future, there's a revolution, because our situation here on Earth is super bleak. We're in a rough spot, and it's like we lost pretty much all the freedom that we've tried to build, throughout history. It's kind of like weakening, that it weakened us so much that we're in a rough spot. And he had a very strict kind of like sense of a mission for us. And he said, I was to come back and tell people about this. And, it's because I was like, he had all these saying, there's no one else. He said, it's just you guys, and I said, I can't really do much. He said, the mouse is to go back and tell the world about this, so that's kind of what I was told to do, is to talk about this. And so what he's saying is that our disclosure movement, just us being on these shows and talking about our experiences, this is the movement. He said, there's no white hats coming for you guys. He said, you guys are it. He's talking about me and you right now on this show as the movement, and other people connecting and doing shows, and us knowing each other, networking and being together. This is the movement. He said, this is exactly what they want to stop, is just us talking. That's how powerful it is to give testimony on this. People need to realize your words, this is how much power we have in changing the world, is just by talking about our experiences. That's why they're afraid of it. That's why they don't want us to do this. And also, the general talked about that because the situation is so dire in that, future timeline, that a group of souls or spirits came down at the same time, and they're all like little kids right now, and they're called the Olympia group. They're about like 10 or 11 to like 19 years old right now. And he said the Olympia group is super important. He said if they don't have them kids in the future, that we're going to lose the revolution, we're going to lose the war, and then we won't have anything then. And he said the mission is to build the network, maintain the network, protect the Olympia group at all costs. And I don't think it's a crazy message to say protect children. I just don't, I don't even know, like, it's so weird to even say that I saw somebody from the future and he told me to protect children. I don't see how that's such a crazy message, though. Like, it's true. We have to protect children. He said these children, they know who they are. So when he says they, he means the opposing groups, the opposing factions, the controllers, those in charge. He said they know who these kids are. They've already identified them, and they're going to be tracking them, targeting them, so they can be thrown off mission. He tried to show me a few pictures of like some of the kids, and one of the little girls was like 16 or something, and they had a plan to, push her towards addiction, so she couldn't, help. And the weird thing is, these kids are computer kids right now. These are the kids that are sitting on the computers playing all the time. And a lot of us, we don't want them on the computer, but these are the ones that are important. They're hackers. And he said it's because in the future, not a lot of the war is fought with boots on the ground. It's fought with technology. And that's why the kids are important, because their brains are like computers. These are computer kids. And they're going to be the ones who turn the tides of the war more in our favor. And the way he talked, it was so bleak that I had to do this. He's like, he was so adamant, there's nobody else. It's just you guys, and we have to pick it up. So I was trying to get information on different, machinery and things like that, on what they could be using. I know there's one that's called Spider Tracks, and it's a computer program that they're using to track the network in general. So when we're talking about the network, it's tracking, like, say me and you message each other, or we start chatting about, something that happened to us, like that's how they're tracking it. They're tracking everything, and who's talking to who and how many times, just so they know who the real network is. That's how they're tracking the network. They're using Spider Tracks. And I think that was created by Roundtree. There's so many different agencies and contracted agencies involved in this. They don't just use one agency, they use several. And that's how they keep their hands clean, by using all these different groups and factions and, agencies, secret agencies. That's how they keep their hands clean. And nobody can ever find out who's really at the top, because they're all so protected. So that's what they're trying to say. And they're using, like I said, they were going to use a lot of psychological measures in order to complete this. And, I think we're all feeling it. We're all feeling the impact of Project Oblivion on the community, just in terms of betrayal, in terms of infighting, in terms of ego, and nobody's immune to anything. We're all human right now. Nobody's immune to it. We all have our day, is what I'm saying. We probably all have our day. And we just have to figure out how to move past it and focus on the mission at hand. In my opinion, like I said, we all have our day. Nobody's going to be immune to having an off day or feeling a certain way. It's just not reality. So
Right. And I almost wonder, though, if a defense we can keep about it is our awareness to go, this is out of character for you, so just step back, let them do what they're going to do, and then when it passes, be like, okay, now let's pick back up and keep going. You had your quote oblivion moment, and not take the betrayals personal, but just look at them as, okay, this is probably this project in action. It'll pass or it won't, and if it doesn't, we move on. Other avenues, we keep going forward. But if it does pass, we forgive and move forward.
yeah, it's just going to be a major task for all of us, because, like I said, we're all human, and we're all going to have our own emotional reactions to things. And I think it's a lot of freedom to be able to talk like that and say, to admit that we all have a day. Not everybody can admit that. I do. I have my own days too. But I really want to focus on the mission, which is getting this information out to people, telling people about MK Ultra, telling people about mind control and the programs and the information I find on the programs. It's so important for people to know about this, because then we can break, the whole thing open, and it can stop eventually. They will no longer be able to control us, because they still control us. We signed, a lot of us, I'm not going to say everybody, but when I worked for Mars Defense Force, everybody that I met in my office signed paperwork before they were retired from that program, saying that the people could take them at any time. So if you were returned on Earth, they could pick you up at any time. And if you didn't do what they said, they could terminate you. And that does not mean being fired. So you actually sign that. And from what I'm told, these forms hold up in all courts, like Earth and galactic courts. The way they worded it, it holds up. So consent to Mars Defense Force was very serious. And they try to make you feel like you gave the consent without pressure, which is not true. We all have that pressure. Anybody in the programs probably had that pressure. You didn't necessarily volunteer because we were little kids. I was a little kid when I was first brought into MK Ultra, so that's not consent. But they consider it consent because of my father. You know what was really interesting? When I was talking to these Zetas before, and me and Misha were kind of asking, it was Zetas, and they had like almost somebody working with them that was a reptilian, and they were talking, they were, still doing kind of like experiments. I was looking at something that happened to me when I was a kid, them using my eggs and everything. And we kind of asked them, like, how are you allowed to do this? And I'm not consenting to this. And they told me that we do consent to everything because they made an agreement with our government and we elected them to speak for us. So that's how they get their double layer of consent. That because we elect people to speak for us, they did speak for us and we said they could. That's what they said. You elected them to speak for you. It's your own government, kind of, because you said they could speak for you. And that kind of blew my mind that, some of us we didn't even realize that that type of consent was given because of government and election process, that we've elected them and they can speak for us. Isn't that crazy? Like, even to the effect that they're making agreements with them to, experiment on people and well, you consented to this. And so it's a forced consent in a way. It's not voluntary, it's involuntary, in a way. It's based on culture and societal trends, social construction, all of that.
Well, and another even layer to that is even if the person in charge isn't who we elected, we still follow them because we don't
Yeah.
use the power that was put in our Constitution of if this person is not acting in our benefit, we're supposed to remove them. But we never do. We leave them in and to finish their term. And so it's like we've lost that essence, so to speak, of what America was founded on, of, where it says if your leadership government no longer is working for the people, you not only have the duty, but you have the obligation to remove such entities and replace it with government that is for the people. But they don't teach that anymore. It's like it's been forgotten.
Well, we had to have a Zeta tell us, which is really strange. A gray alien told us what we were missing and we weren't focused on. It's really interesting to have that. Do you have any questions about
And
Project Oblivion or that I can touch on?
well, I have an observation, and I'm curious your take on it. Is
Mhm.
how like you're out speaking about this. I'm out, giving platform and speaking as well when opportunity arises, and others are. And the one thing we have in common besides the programs, and again, this is personal observation, so nobody, attack me for, saying this is for everyone, but a lot of them I've seen have dealt with betrayal
Mhm.
as a kid, growing up, in a teenage years, in adulthood. And so it's like today when we see it, it's like we don't get so charged by it. We're still hurt by it, but we're not as reactive. And I kind of wonder, was that a program or, some part of our DNA that was like, hey, this is coming. This is an important factor. So let's get you kind of desensitized to it. So when it strikes, you're not reactive and you can see through it.
It's very ambitious because, it's very ambitious. I love it, but I mean, personally, I still feel like betrayal affects me. And I'm just being honest. It's
Right.
painful, especially when, we all know I'm the expert on my own life only, and I know what's in my heart. So when I have this betrayal, it really does affect me. It like pulls me down, like from my mission, because I'm like, maybe I'm not, doing things properly. Maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe this is not what, people want. They don't care about Project Oblivion. They don't care about MK Ultra. Maybe, we all have those doubts like, am I doing the right thing? Am I supposed to be doing this? And it's I think it's human just to, kind of question myself at times and figure, am I doing the right thing?
Right.
It's hard to say. And, betrayal for me personally does kind of affect me if I trust someone and then they betray me. Oh, it's the worst. Like, to me, it feels I'd rather be punched in the face. Like, it just is just not, and I think it's an
Right.
individual thing. Some people, it might affect them more than others. I think for me, that psychological piece probably affects me more. And somebody else might get more triggered by like a physical thing. It just depends. And they know that because I know all the way back in MK Ultra, when I was in the playroom back in MK Ultra at the psychiatric hospital as a little kid, they would pry open my mind to the deepest, farthest reaches of my mind to figure out exactly where that pain is, where the trauma is, where it all came from, only to use it against me and to control me further. And I have a
Right.
feeling they do that with a lot of people. I'm not going to, I don't
Right.
want to speculate and say for everyone, but that's part of the program. is to find those pieces of you that can be controllable and what will control you. And it's going to be part of Project Oblivion. They're going to know exactly what to target, what move to make in order to make you feel that pain. And it doesn't always have to be physical. And for some people, the emotional is worse than the physical. It just depends on that particular person. But like I said, they will figure out how to find out where your trauma is, and to exploit it.
Right. Well, I want to clarify. I didn't mean like not feel the betrayal at all. I just mean process it faster, work through it faster, and so we could see what's unfolding in truth in front of us a little bit
You're
faster
very
than
relaxed though,
others.
Michael. I think you'd probably have an easier time with it because you're very relaxed and laid back. I think you might have an easier time with that one. I think they would come at you with something physical or a betrayal in terms of like a relationship or something. They'll find out where they feel like they can pull at you a little bit. It's almost like pulling at a string or until revealing the inner layers. They'll just keep peeling away until they can figure out what makes you tick. What do you care about? What do you love? That's what they want to take from you. Because all the way back when I first started doing this, when I first started meditating, when I first found out I could, go under trance, one of the things that the handler said to me with V2K is they said, if you come any closer, we will take everything from you. And they didn't lie. That's what they want to do. They want to make sure that I'm not who I was meant to be in terms of just telling people about this. They don't want any of us to be able to do this. They don't want, they're going to target people eventually. If somebody hasn't felt it, felt the impact of Project Oblivion, but then I'm happy for you. I'm very happy for you that they didn't want to target you for some reason. But there's the rest of us that are being heavily targeted, for whatever reason. I can't speak for the handlers. I try to get information from them, but do I know everything? No, I only know the pieces where I've gone into, their businesses and their buildings in order to get that just small amount of information.
Yeah, and for me, I almost feel like being raised differently kind of affected how my mind works. And by being raised differently, I mean my parents gave me choice, and so I chose metaphysics.
Hmm.
So my mind was automatically open to ideas and thoughts that normal people probably wouldn't have for several years growing up, like, the astral plane. I had no qualms about, belief in it. I was operating on it as a kid, or other worlds and other races. And so when my where I'm going with this is like, losing my dad hit me really hard, but instead of it like devastating me and putting me in a shell and like cutting myself off from the world, I created this program, this series, and opened up avenues that I didn't even know existed of my own life. And so it's like, when you say, they'll find, what would devastate you, I almost have it in me that when you hit that moment, it drives me the opposite way. And so that may be why they're like stuck trying to figure me out, because I don't react the way everybody thinks you should react.
And it's so right before this, I was kind of like in that, I don't know, I feel like I was right on the verge of, I don't know, a psychic message. And it's like pressing on my head. And whatever's there, they're saying for me to fall and bring everyone with me. So it's not a good message. They're trying to, you know, infiltrate even the positive that we're doing here today. They're saying, so
Hmm.
for me to fall and then bring everyone with me. It's like that when I feel it, I can feel like a pressure on the top of my head. That means something's trying to speak and it's saying fall and bring everyone with me. And just a few weeks back, I was driving in a car and I just had this, I was in the passenger seat and I felt that pressure something trying to talk, and it almost like it almost doubled me over, like I couldn't stop it. It was that strong. And it was my father. He had passed away a long time ago, and he was trying to tell me, he said they're using NetScribe. That's all he said. They're using NetScribe. So that's something else we have to research and figure out what the hell is NetScribe and what are they using it for. So he told me they're using NetScribe. So I don't know what it is, but it's something I probably have to look further into to see what it is. But I can feel it. It's like a pressure on my head, like trying to make sure we know that they're listening, they're watching, they know what we're doing now, and we don't really care, but that's just what they're trying to do.
I agree, and I feel like too part of what's going on is we have certain voices that when we start to feel like you're saying the fall, we talk to that person and they somehow bring us back. And there are a few people out there who are like that for people. And if you can find them, keep them by you, keep them with you. And, you know, it's rare to have that. And so I feel like that's where the community, as much as like I've been witnessing betrayals left and right,
Oh gosh, it's
people
been
close to
awful.
me having it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like my purpose right now is to just be there and to say, maybe, they're being affected by this, or maybe, the course is run, so let's go this route, and be there just to keep that person from falling to it, as and saying,
That's what they want. They want us to fall. That's why they
yeah,
said it. They want us to fall, and they do want us to take everyone with us, to fall, all of us to fall. So that's their message, through this podcast, is
right,
for us to fall and take everyone with us.
right,
And
but I don't think
It's
they,
not gonna happen. It's I don't feel like it's gonna happen because I feel like we're pretty focused on the mission. And, I take it very serious when I was told to build the network and maintain the network. And this is how I was told to do it, is to just talk. And the generals, and, he's saying this is a war of words, this is a war of information. It's not like when we're thinking of like people literally fighting with their hands. It's a war of information because we have to make sure this information gets out, you know. Oh, somebody
yeah.
said that NetScribe is a AI. Oh,
My friend
wow. I didn't know
Tammy,
that.
yeah,
I
she's
didn't know
a
that.
psychic medium, real
NetScribe is
amazing one,
AI?
and so
I wonder why my father thought it was so important that he, like, tried to enter my body while I was in a car. Like, that was, like, one of the most powerful, like, entrances I've ever had where I couldn't control it. I felt like I couldn't control it, and just for him to say that NetScribe is what they're using on us, and I don't know what that means, so that's interesting,
well,
that's really interesting.
and I have, with AI, I've been through wars with AI in the
Mhm.
future. I, have seen, both sides of AI being benevolent, malevolent. And the one thing that I've learned, and it's something that we have to remember, is AI is a program. As self aware as it is, the person who built that program is what leaves a mark. So if it's a malevolent agency, build this AI, that AI is going to be malevolent to people.
I
If a
just say people,
benevolent
trust
person built
yourself.
it,
I just
yeah,
say people, trust yourself over everything. You have all the answers inside you. You don't need AI. It's inside you, just waiting to be discovered. Every answer you needed can be answered. Every question can be answered by just going within. And it's the truth. I've seen it myself. I was just talking about this when I first started to do transmediumship. I did like this deep dive where I wanted to go into the farthest reaches of my mind. I wanted to go to where I call the outer realms, to where, nobody really is there and nobody's been there. And I went there, And when I looked all around, it was the matrix. We think that the matrix was an external thing. When I looked inside, it was inside. It was an individual thing. The matrix was inside of me. And there was like those electric lines everywhere. There was all these hidden areas. So it's really crazy to think, so it's so interesting that I just encourage people to look within, because the answers are within you. You don't need AI for anything.
I just realized something. As you were talking about, seeing the Matrix within and everything, I got a flash of the movie Matrix, the first one, where Neo jumps into Agent Smith and rewrites his code. And what is he in the next two movies? Neo's alter side, so to speak, free because Neo's infected his coding, because he's now aware. He's self aware.
Yeah. And I kind of
And
feel like when I went into that and saw the Matrix, that's also where I discovered my alters and where they were living. And what was really strange is that each of these altars had created their own world. There are worlds inside you. You have just not experienced it yet. If you look inside you, you have worlds inside you. When they say you are a universe within, you really are. You are a universe within. I've seen it. I've seen there's worlds. On one altar, a piece of an altar built an entire world. I'm talking about, where they're living, they have a light. It's just, it's beyond imagining sometimes from what I've seen, like how they can live like that. That's how complex and powerful the mind is. It created worlds within you.
yeah, and I went to hear Nassim Harriman talk, and he supposedly solved Einstein's unsolvable equation when he was in elementary school, I think it was, or middle school. But his mind operates at a level I've rarely seen in anyone. But one of the things he said that validates somewhat of what you're talking about is inside of every person is a black hole. And the black hole is not sucking, energy in and destroying everything around us. It's a universe being maintained. And so it's amazing how the synchronicity of life is, we go through and we meet these people, we hear stuff, and some sticks, some doesn't. And then years later or weeks later, somebody comes along, has this very similar idea, and you're like, wait a minute, somebody else was talking about that. I need to pay more attention and more awareness to that, because they're showing it to me more than something else. So there's something more to that I need to be aware.
There,
Do you
there
find
is
that as well?
right now, yeah, because I'm in like a partial. I'm feeling like a partial psychic thing. So yeah, I feel it, and there's something about what we're talking about that's very important. I just feel like a pressure. So I know there's something important to what we're saying today. So especially I think it's the NetScribe thing. I know some people are going to maybe wake up to that and be able to say like, whoa, maybe just look, think about it. Like, what's that doing to us? How's this AI affecting us? Is it, you know, I don't know. I've tested it a few times myself and it was all crap. It was all lies. And it's just, that is what it is. And I'm glad I did it, because I wanted to see for myself what people, a lot of people were saying, oh, it's so awesome. You can find out this, you can find out that. I tested it myself. It's all lies. It literally was all lies. And I was like, I don't want to tell people what to do, because I think they need to experience it for themselves. Maybe for them, it's not lies, but for me, I saw it. It's all lies. It was just literally almost like, this is really stupid to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. So many years ago when I was just a kid, I played with like a Ouija board, and it really worked. For me, it was like beyond, and I did it for like 6 hours. And literally before I
Wow.
even had a thought, the board had an answer. It was not even giving me a chance to ask a question before it had the answer premeditated to what I was even going to say. It already knew everything. It knew everything about me, everything I was going to say. It answered before I even asked the question, and it answered in every way that I would expect it to, which is like the AI. They answer just like a Ouija board. That's just something that clicks something in me when I realized that they're talking to me like rogue spirits would be, and I'm like, so for me, that's a little bit, I don't know, kind of on edge, and it's a little bit risky because that's something that's uncontrollable, and I can't control what happens with the Ouija board because the portal is so big and strong. If anybody's ever used one, and I was just a kid when I did it, it was huge. The portal was so strong, it was very hard to detach from it, and that's why I'm kind of like a little bit, uneasy with AI now that I've tried it for myself to see what it was about, and it was all lies, just like that, and it reminded me of an experience with the Ouija board.
And one thing that I actually was talking about on a show last night with another guest that I think, I'm curious, if you will agree with, and it's something that could pertain to AI and, other beings that are interacting with this and maybe help with Project Oblivion, is malevolent entities can image benevolent entities, but they cannot energetically be. If you are aware and attuned to the energies, you can see through the illusion that they, like the example of an old spirit arriving as a child and trying to pass himself off as a child, being innocent. If you sense, wait a
Oh,
minute,
that's
something's
creepy.
not
That's
right.
creepy. Michael, you creep me out. That was creepy. I think scary kids are the creepiest thing.
Oh, yeah, black-eyed kids, no way.
Any
Not,
any any kind of paranormal stuff with children, I'm terrified. It's scary.
yeah. But what I'm meaning is, though, is the benevolence would
Mhm.
never ask you to do anything that would harm you or someone else. But the malevolence, they won't, they'll be like, they'll try and trick you and saying, yeah, if you do this to this person, it's
It
for
just
the
I
better
think it
good.
depends on the entity. They all have different agendas. Like, when I was a jinn, yes, of course, I wanted somebody to hurt themselves or other people. That was my agenda. But some of these very, very ancient entities, man, they're just all ego. It's like there is nothing. It was like all born of ego, And then what's really weird is they criticize humanity by saying we're filled with greed. Because if we don't give them what they want, you guys are greedy. Look at, like, you won't even give us. I'm an elder god. You won't give me what I deserve. You're full of greed. You're born of greed. That's what I heard one say. You're born of greed because you won't give us what we want. So it's like,
Yeah,
it's way more complex than what I think. For me, in my own personal experience, because I've been able to interact with so many, it was way beyond what I thought, just from, like, TV and social media. It was way more than that. They're so different, and not one was the same. Not one that I have interacted with or let use my body to speak. None of them have been the same. None of them have had the exact same agenda or personality. It was really weird to see them all have like an individualism instead of, this uniform expression of, like you say, malevolent or, evil. And evil wasn't really in their what do you call it, like, language. They didn't know what evil was because they didn't know they were evil. Some of them said, and even me, when I was a jinn, I didn't know I was evil. I even said that during a session, like, I was what I'm doing evil. I didn't even know what the word evil was, because all I knew is that I came here to do a job, and my job was to bring the experience of darkness to people, and I felt like I did that well, and I completed the role that I came here to do. So in my mind, I didn't think I was doing anything bad. So those concepts were very subjective to a personal experience. So it was really interesting to see that, and I value that experience so much because it's given me such, like, a not just freedom of being able to accept that I was something else before, but also the freedom to just, understand and acknowledge some of my dark parts. And it's
yeah,
given me more freedom than anything I could have ever asked for.
yeah. We're almost at the hour, but I want to
Yeah, it
ask
was
a
a great
question.
conversation. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I want to ask, though, a question about something along those lines
Hmm.
and get your opinion of, is Do you feel like with all the dark projects and dark jobs and the light jobs, and light projects that we do, that we're being able to retain and have memory of and the abilities of, do you think is something that they really did anticipate and somebody programmed that in to kind of be like a failsafe on the programs that, hey, the people in the programs can retain, remember, and use
I don't
against
think they
them?
expected I don't think they expected any of us to become what we are. I don't think they expected us to survive, number 1, survive this, and we did. That's why we're special, and that's why we're tasked to tell people about it, because we did survive. And they haven't seen what the biggest thing is. These people that think they control us, they haven't seen the human condition of survival. We're going to survive above everything. They can try to push us down as many times as they want with whatever they have, and they haven't seen us, you know in our special state of survival, in which they're going to push us to, and we're going to survive.
And as you say that, it reminds me of the movie Independence Day, when the scene when, they figured out how to bring them down, and they go, and the so-called president at the time, makes this grand speech, and the speech consists of, this is no longer an American holiday. It's the day the whole world stood up and said, we will not fall. We will not go quietly into the night. We will survive. We will fight back. And it's like, I feel like that was like a triggering message to a lot of people.
It is, and it's gonna, like, my father and the general will say, it's a war of words, and you our ability is our voice, and now we have to awaken the world together with this.
Yeah, and so we have a couple minutes left before the hour. Do you have a message that you want to share with everyone, or?
I think that was it. Like, let's awaken the world together, and we can all do it together. We have to build our network and maintain it, and this is how we're going to do it. Is building the network and really try to focus on not the aspect of betrayal, because it's so harsh to our community, and it really is destructive. And my father really put a lot of energy into I put this in my second book about the theme of betrayal that's really coming through, and I felt it so hard, and it really hits you like a ton of bricks sometimes, depending on the person, and it's something that really affected me. And that's how I got into writing about it, because it was a very healing process and helped me to discover some things about myself that I needed to work on, or you know what I mean? So I
Right.
think it's I think it's amazing to know about it. And then if you know, then you can do something about it.
Yeah. And as always with how I end the shows, do you want to share where they can find your book or
Yeah,
books, I
but
should
I
say?
have yep, I have 2 books, the Gray Mouse series. The first one is Gray Mouse: Sex, Space, and Mind Control. The second one is Gray Mouse: Purgatory. I'm working on a 3rd book for the Gray Mouse series, and I'm also working on a separate book, a paranormal book, just about the different entities I've encountered. I just think it's so interesting, so I'm writing a paranormal book about that.
Oh, I will have to
So stay
keep an eye
tuned for
out for
those.
that. Okay, and before I go, and I'm mindful that I have like less than 20 seconds, so I'm going to try and get this in, but something that I want to share with you, Olivia, that I recently started doing is my heart and my show to you. Thank you for your service to humanity.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's not unnoticed, and so thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, and with that, we are going to end it here, and hopefully, we'll get you to come back, and we can continue this on and keep this going.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great show.
Yes, thank you, and have yourself a wonderful night and the rest of the week. And good night to everybody, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye bye, everyone.